Good morning and happy Sunday. I'm in my Sunday best, which is just to be totally chill today, but I had this huge connection that I wanted to share with you, and I'm always sharing my connections with you. And it's the connection between meditation and psychotherapy. Because some of you in meditation are really struggling with the idea of acceptance, right? And I get it because I'm very feisty and I'm fighty. It's sort of how I was raised to be. And so the idea of acceptance for me was really connected to, or I associated it to, being complacent or settling for a situation that I might not want. So let me propose a new idea or a new concept that I myself have had to work through in terms of this idea of acceptance in meditation. And I think this is really going to help. I really do. So as a therapist, when people come into my office for the first time, and I don't know much about them, I know that they might be in some sort of crisis. They're certainly probably going through a negative experience. Not many come just because they think it's, cool to come into therapy. And so as a therapist, I have to really, really expand. I have to just welcome whatever it is that they're bringing in, okay? I just have to create this space for them that's private, that's welcoming, that's inviting for them to speak, so that they can feel free to share and speak, correct? And so they can be bringing up something terrible they did, or the fact that they can't get out of a depression. And so think of this. If I didn't give that a ton of space, these could be my reactions. I could be appalled. I could make a face and be like, what? What's going on? Right? What would that do to them? They would probably leave. They would probably be frozen or paralyzed. They certainly wouldn't be free to start working on it. Okay? I could run. I could say, this is too much for me. Forget it. I don't want to deal with this, right? I could say that. I could be like, I don't want to deal with this. This is too much. This is too painful. This makes me question so many things. I could do all of that. And again, the person would be completely shut down. There's no movement and no room for change. Do you see that? Okay. I could shut down myself. That's another option. I could just hear what they're saying and be like, ugh, it's too heavy. I can't do this. That's what we're like. That's my point. That's the point of acceptance in meditation. Remember, I see myself sort of as training folks in having feelings. And the beginning place is to feel it. To feel it and to accept it. Even when it's around injustice. Like, what are all the feelings around injustice? Pain, deep pain, grief, feeling disgusted, feeling rageful, feeling powerless, right? So, as a good therapist, I would hold that for another. I would name it. I would be in it with them. And those of you who know me know that I do that. That's what I do. I allow myself to feel with you. I don't need to change it immediately, right? Don't need to change it immediately. But this is the point. Unless I can accept what I'm feeling first, unless I can do that, unless I can look at what's there and accept it, we're never going to be able to change it, right? I can't work with a client who doesn't want to look inside. And I just teach them how to accept it, how to be like, okay, let's go through that story again and let's have all the feelings possible about this story. That's why I guess I'm so pulled to meditation, because I can make the links. Or maybe that's why I was so pulled to clinical psychology or being a psychotherapist, because originally I was a meditator before I became a therapist, but I could see the connections. And so it's almost like, be a good therapist to yourself. Don't run. Don't be appalled at yourself because you're just shaming yourself. I would be shaming you if I was appalled. I've had people come in with stuff. In fact, sometimes they come in to test me to see if I can handle it. And right, because I've gone deep inside myself, because I've allowed so many of sometimes my grossest feelings inside myself, I've trained myself, I've built that muscle, I have a lot of capacity of being able to hold it with others and for others, but I'd rather do it with you than for you, although sometimes I can feel it. I start by feeling it for you, and then I do it with you. That's acceptance in meditation, is you just saying, okay, today I'm irritable. I'm going to start there. Now be careful of the blame game. If you catch yourself in either blaming or shaming yourself or blaming yourself, blaming others or shaming others, you've moved away from the feeling. Okay? But maybe you can say, oh, I really feel like blaming someone, because underneath that I feel so powerless. Okay? So this is the point. You can end your own suffering by accepting your feelings first. When you come to therapy, you want to end your suffering, your distress. And it requires a therapist who will sit there with you and accept it. Start there, right? And that's going to give us like the opportunity, the very gentle opportunity. Remember, the next step is to be curious, to be like, I wonder why you're feeling like this. Is to be curious about your story. Curious about your story. So the same thing happens when you're sitting with yourself in meditation. When you're sitting with injustice or fear or panic or jealousy or rage or irritability, right now that we're all at home, frustration or lust or in-loveness. Because the good feelings count here too. A lot of you are really, you know who you are. You're really afraid to have the good feelings, the loving feelings, the gentle feelings, the in-love feelings, the excited feelings, the grateful and abundant feelings. Because there's training there too. Listen, we can't move to heaven on earth. We can't move into abundant living unless you train yourself to accept those feelings too. We cannot move to heaven on earth if you're not training yourself. You know who you are. in accepting your love feelings, your joy feelings, right? Because there's a range. It's not just all negative stuff. A lot of you are afraid to feel good about yourself, solid, loving yourself. A lot of you. It's a training. And we develop this muscle. You know we do. You guys already have. But first step is we start with allowing, which is accepting. We allow and we accept. Dynamic is all about passionate feeling. We tell our stories and we feel them to evaporate the feeling, right? So that we can create the new story, the heaven on earth story. Okay? So I really wanted to make that connection. Sometimes I'm like slammed with these sort of like these downloads, these messages that I start getting of making a connection. I really thought this was an important, and again, anything you want to ask, just ask me, and we can go from there. Sometimes your questions actually stimulate these types of answers that come to me. Okay? All right. Have a happy Sunday.